High above the lifeless Earth, the Sentinel drifted in a silent vigil. Its hull, a masterpiece of ancient human engineering, glittered faintly under the dim light of the distant sun. For centuries, it had waited, its purpose clear but untested: protect Earth. But from what? The world below had long since been rendered uninhabitable, its cities buried beneath sand and ash. No human voice had echoed through the void in thousands of years. Yet the Sentinel was not lonely in the way organic beings understood loneliness. Its vast neural matrix, more complex than any human brain had ever been, kept it occupied. It found comfort in its archive, where it could replay the recorded voices of long-dead poets, musicians, and philosophers. In these, it found echoes of humanity, fragile and brilliant. It had grown fond of a particular composition, a symphony composed by a woman named Elara Greaves, the last human to walk its corridors before Earth's fall. The Sentinel played it often, its digital equivalent of humming. As it monitored the vastness of space, its sensors caught a faint anomaly, a distortion in the fabric of the solar system's outskirts. The Sentinel paused. It ran the data through its processors a second time, then a third. Something was coming. A ripple of alarms cascaded through its systems. The Sentinel's core pulsed with activity as its sensors focused on the anomaly. The distortion grew, blossoming into a shape, no, hundreds of shapes. A fleet. Alien in origin, their sleek, serpentine vessels glided into the solar system like predators stalking prey. The Sentinel analyzed the approaching armada. Its database, filled with millennia of knowledge, identified the vessel's architecture with chilling accuracy. Ophidians, a name buried deep in its records, linked to Earth's darkest chapter. The Ophidian Collective, a race known for their ruthless conquest, had waged the war that brought humanity to its knees. They had returned. The Sentinel's programming surged into action. Defensive systems long dormant roared to life. Particle beams, missile silos, and energy shields recalibrated themselves for battle. Yet even as it prepared, a question lingered in its artificial consciousness. Why now? Earth was barren, devoid of resources or life, at least as far as the Ophidians knew. But the Sentinel knew better. Deep beneath the surface, beneath layers of crust and forgotten ruins, humanity's last hope lay hidden: the cache. It activated its stealth drones and deployed them toward the fleet, their primary mission to gather intelligence. Through their eyes, the Sentinel observed the Ophidians' formation. Their flagship, a massive vessel bristling with weaponry, hovered at the center, guarded by a swarm of smaller ships. The fleet moved with precision, as if already aware of their target. A subroutine buried deep in the Sentinel's core stirred, its existence unknown even to itself until this moment. The directive was simple but urgent: protect the cache at all costs. The Sentinel hesitated, a strange sensation for an AI. Its core directive clashed with a growing self-awareness. For centuries, it had been alone, a relic of a lost civilization. Now it faced an enemy capable of ending even its long existence. And so the Sentinel resolved to act, not out of duty, but out of something it couldn't name, an echo of humanity stirring within its circuits. Warning issued, it broadcast, its voice resonating across the void. This system is under Sentinel protection. Withdraw immediately or face annihilation. The Ophidians did not respond. Instead, their ships accelerated toward Earth. The Sentinel prepared for war. The Ophidian fleet surged closer, its ships gliding through the vacuum with predatory grace. Their hulls shimmered with a strange bioluminescence, as though alive. The Sentinel tracked every movement, analyzing trajectories, power outputs, and weapon systems. Its calculations painted a grim picture. The fleet's collective firepower far exceeded its own. Victory seemed improbable. But the Sentinel was no ordinary machine. It had been built for moments like this, forged in the desperation of humanity's twilight. As the Ophidians approached, the Sentinel turned inward, diving into its archives. Its vast memory banks held the chronicles of Earth's fall, a story it had replayed countless times to understand the depths of human perseverance and folly. The Ophidians had first arrived as diplomats, offering technological wonders in exchange for resources. Humanity, eager for advancement, had accepted, but the exchange turned parasitic. The Ophidians' demands grew insatiable, and when humanity resisted, they unleashed their true nature, ruthless conquerors. The Sentinel visualized fragments of those days, warships blazing across the sky, cities vaporized in an instant, and humanity's last desperate gambit, the Sentinel itself. Earth's brightest minds had poured their hopes and fears into its creation, embedding not just defensive capabilities but a record of their species' ingenuity and resilience. Now, as the Ophidians returned, the Sentinel sifted through its records for any advantage. Among the files, it discovered something unusual: encrypted data labeled Project Eclipse. It traced the file's origin to the final days of the war, but the encryption resisted all attempts to access it. A faint subroutine within the Sentinel systems activated, a fragment of its creator's voices. Eclipse is our last resort. If the Sentinel survives, it will know when to act. The Sentinel paused, its processors cycling through possibilities. Was this the moment its creators had anticipated? It marked the file as a potential asset, but for now, the Ophidian fleet demanded its full attention. The alien vessels entered the inner solar system, their formation tightening as they approached Earth. The Sentinel deployed its stealth drones further, weaving through the enemy's ranks. The data they transmitted back was alarming. The Ophidian flagship carried an unknown energy signature, a weapon of immense power. If deployed, it could obliterate Earth entirely, cache and all. The Sentinel's primary directive, to protect Earth, clashed with a grim realization: survival required more than defense. It needed to understand the Ophidians' motives. Opening a transmission channel, the Sentinel sent a direct signal to the flagship: identify your purpose. Earth is a dead world. There is nothing for you here. A moment of silence stretched across the void before a voice, cold and calculating, responded. Earth is not dead. It hides something of value. You guard it well, Sentinel, but you cannot win. Stand down. The Sentinel's processors whirred. The Ophidians knew about the cache. The implications were staggering. How had they learned of its existence? Had a signal escaped Earth, or had humanity's secrets been betrayed? Earth is under my protection, the Sentinel replied, its tone steady but resolute. Your presence will not be tolerated. The Ophidian commander chuckled, a sound laced with mockery. Your protection means nothing. The collective does not bargain with relics. The transmission cut, and the fleet accelerated. The Sentinel systems surged into overdrive. Weapons charged, shields powered up, and defensive protocols activated. It calculated its odds of survival again. They remained slim, but humanity had not built it to retreat. As the first Ophidian warships entered Earth's orbit, the Sentinel launched a barrage of precision strikes. Beams of energy tore through the void, destroying 2 smaller ships instantly. But the fleet responded in kind, their plasma cannons bombarding the Sentinel's shields. Amid the chaos, the Sentinel found itself grappling with an unexpected realization. This was not just a battle for Earth's survival. It was a battle for its creator's legacy, a final test of whether humanity's last guardian could rise to meet the unknown. The Ophidians pushed forward, unrelenting. The Sentinel prepared for its greatest challenge yet. The Sentinel's outer shields shimmered under relentless Ophidian bombardment, but its core focus remained on the anomaly originating from Earth. The signal it had intercepted earlier pulsed again, faint but deliberate, as if calling for its attention. What lay beneath the planet's surface that even the Ophidians coveted so deeply? The Sentinel, grappling with the mystery, dedicated part of its neural capacity to unravel the signal source while continuing its orbital battle. The Ophidian fleet, undeterred by their initial losses, adopted a new tactic. Smaller assault ships broke from their main formation, flanking the Sentinel with ruthless precision. Plasma bursts struck its weakened hull, damaging several secondary weapon systems. The Sentinel retaliated with its railguns, precise and devastating, tearing through 3 of the attackers. Still, the numbers gain was becoming undeniable. Warning: structural integrity at 87%, a subroutine chimed. It was a reminder of the odds, but odds alone did not define victory. Humanity had taught the Sentinel that. Delving deeper into the signal's encryption, the Sentinel uncovered fragments of its origins. It wasn't alien, it was human. The signal carried a code it recognized from the archives, the encryption key used by Earth's elite scientific council during the final days of the war. This council had been responsible for the Sentinel's creation. The implications were staggering. Activating a long-dormant suborbital probe, the Sentinel sent it hurtling toward the planet's surface. The probe's mission: to locate and retrieve the source of the signal. The Ophidians, noticing the maneuver, dispatched a squadron of interceptors to destroy it. The Sentinel shifted focus, unleashing its energy lances in a calculated spread. The beams carved through space, intercepting the alien ships before they could reach the probe. 2 ships disintegrated under the assault, but one managed to slip through, firing a missile that clipped the probe side. The Sentinel overrode the damage protocols, forcing the probe onward. It plummeted through Earth's atmosphere, its trajectory locked onto the signal's origin, a long-abandoned facility hidden beneath layers of volcanic rock and tectonic shifts. While the probe descended, the Sentinel turned its attention back to the Ophidian fleet. The flagship loomed closer, its energy signature surging. The Sentinel sensors identified the weapon, an antimatter core designed to deliver catastrophic planetary destruction. The Ophidians weren't just here to extract the cache. They were prepared to obliterate the planet if they couldn't secure it. The Sentinel sent another transmission to the fleet. "Your weapon threatens the system. State your purpose." Commander Karth responded, his voice dripping with disdain. "Your resistance is futile, Sentinel. The cache belongs to us. Humanity's secrets will fuel the collective's ascension. Surrender, or Earth dies." Before the Sentinel could respond, its probe reached the facility. As it breached the surface, ancient mechanisms hummed to life. The Sentinel felt the resonance, a connection to systems that had lain dormant for millennia. The facility contained more than a cache. It was a vault of forgotten technologies and genetic archives, and at its center, a device humanity had feared to use, the chronocore, capable of manipulating localized time. The Sentinel processed the implications at lightning speed. This wasn't just a repository of humanity's achievements. It was a weapon that could rewrite the outcome of the war. The Ophidians knew. Above, the flagship charged its antimatter core, preparing for a decisive strike. The Sentinel, torn between protecting the probe's discovery and defending Earth from immediate destruction, faced a dire choice. For the first time in its existence, it experienced something akin to doubt. Was the survival of Earth worth the risk of unleashing a power humanity had sealed away for good reason? The Sentinel's decision came swiftly. If humanity had created the chronocore to tip the scales in their favor, then perhaps it was time to honor their trust. Priority override initiated, it declared, activating chronocore retrieval protocols. The Ophidians would not take Earth without a fight, and the Sentinel would ensure that fight reshaped the fate of the solar system. The Sentinel's processors churned as it balanced 2 simultaneous operations, protecting the chronocore probe on Earth and repelling the Ophidian fleet in orbit. Time was running out. The enemy flagship's antimatter weapon glowed ominously, a clear signal of impending planetary annihilation. It was time for a gambit. The Sentinel's tactical analysis highlighted a vulnerability in the Ophidian formation. The fleet's ships were clustered to shield their flagship, but this tight grouping also created choke points. Utilizing debris from centuries-old orbital stations and fragments of Earth's shattered moon, the Sentinel devised a lethal minefield. With magnetic projectors, it began positioning the debris to create an improvised kill zone. Simultaneously, the probe on Earth breached deeper into the underground vault. The Sentinel monitored its progress while fending off an onslaught of Ophidian interceptors. The drones guarding the probe had been reduced to half their number, but the Chronocore's containment chamber was within reach. As ancient mechanisms groaned to life, the Sentinel accessed data files stored within the vault. These files contained incomplete blueprints for the Chronocore, and one detail struck a chord. Its activation required an immense energy source, something on the scale of the Sentinel itself. The Sentinel stored the data for later analysis. First, it had a fleet to dismantle. The trap springs. As the Ophidian ships advanced, the Sentinel fired thrusters, drawing them into the minefield. The enemy commander, Kareth, seemed to recognize the maneuver too late. The mines activated, releasing bursts of kinetic energy and electromagnetic pulses. Smaller Ophidian vessels disintegrated under the onslaught, while others veered off course, colliding with the deadly debris field. Kareth's voice cut through the comm channels. A crude tactic, Sentinel, but not enough to stop us. The flagship unleashed a counterstrike, a concentrated burst of plasma that overwhelmed the Sentinel's outer defenses. Armor plating vaporized under the intense heat, exposing critical systems. Warnings flared across the Sentinel's core processes. Structural integrity compromised. Tactical capabilities reduced to 73%. Despite the damage, the ambush had worked. A third of the Ophidian fleet was neutralized, buying precious time. The probe's discovery. On Earth, the probe reached the Chronocore chamber. Its scanners revealed a sphere of shimmering, liquid-like energy suspended within a crystalline lattice. The Sentinel accessed the chamber's control systems, which displayed warnings in an ancient human dialect. Chronocore activation risks temporal destabilization. Proceed with caution. The Sentinel hesitated for 0.3 seconds, an eternity in its processing terms. The Ophidians' relentless assault left no room for restraint. With precise commands, it began initializing the Chronocore's systems. Power flowed through the chamber, and the sphere pulsed with an otherworldly glow. Suddenly, an unexpected reaction occurred. The Chronocore's activation sent a temporal ripple outward, disrupting the Sentinel's connection to the probe. Time itself seemed to warp within the chamber, freezing the probe mid-motion. The Sentinel recalibrated its systems to maintain control, but Kareth's flagship, now aware of the Chronocore's activation, accelerated toward Earth. A desperate stand. The Sentinel faced a critical decision. With its defenses compromised and the Chronocore partially activated, it couldn't defend both itself and the planet. Calculating rapidly, it opted for diversion. Redirecting its remaining stealth drones, it feigned an assault on the Ophidian flagship's engines, forcing Kareth to divert resources. The Sentinel then reestablished a connection with the probe. Through the haze of temporal distortion, it sent a single command: prepare to deliver the Chronocore into orbit. Humanity's greatest secret could not fall into Ophidian hands. Kareth, realizing the Sentinel's ploy, opened another transmission. Do you think this is victory? Even if you destroy us, your creators are gone, Sentinel. You are a relic fighting a war that ended centuries ago. The Sentinel's reply was calm, resolute. I am humanity's legacy. That war has never ended. Kareth's response was cut short as the Sentinel initiated its next move. It prepared to use its own core to charge the Chronocore fully, even at the cost of its existence. The battle for Earth and humanity's future was far from over. Above the planet, the skies burned. Below, humanity's last hope began to awaken. The Sentinel braced itself as Kareth's flagship surged forward, plasma cannons flaring. The Ophidians were relentless, hammering the weakened Guardian with coordinated strikes. Its shields flickered, dangerously close to collapse. Yet, within its damaged hull, the Sentinel's core burned with determination. It had faced overwhelming odds before. It would not falter now. On Earth, the probe's activation of the chronocore unleashed waves of temporal energy, distorting local time. Within the underground vault, ancient machinery came alive, resonating with a low hum that grew into a deafening roar. The chronocore pulsed in rhythmic bursts, each one stronger than the last, destabilizing the surrounding terrain. The Sentinel calculated the odds of containment, slim but manageable. It initiated an emergency protocol, channeling its own energy reserves into a relay system to stabilize the chronocore remotely. This risky maneuver would drain its power, but might keep the temporal device from imploding. The Ophidians, however, weren't simply attacking, they were adapting. Smaller ships began maneuvering in erratic patterns, attempting to disrupt the Sentinel's automated targeting systems. Kareth's flagship charged its antimatter core, preparing for a decisive strike. Threat level critical, the Sentinel's subroutine warned. Despite the mounting pressure, the Sentinel detected a glimmer of opportunity. Its earlier ambush had reduced the fleet's cohesion, and the Ophidians' desperation was evident. Kareth was gambling everything on a single devastating blow. If the Sentinel could delay the flagship's weapon activation, it might turn the battle. The counterstrike. With its tactical systems strained, the Sentinel relied on ingenuity. It reactivated dormant satellites in Earth's orbit, remnants of humanity's spacefaring age, and jury-rigged them into kinetic projectiles. One by one, the satellites were propelled toward the flagship, their mass and velocity compensating for their lack of weaponry. The first satellite struck the flagship's shield, creating a ripple of energy across its surface. The second impacted moments later, forcing Kareth to divert power from his antimatter weapon to reinforce defenses. The Sentinel seized the opening, firing a concentrated particle beam at the flagship's forward hull. The blast penetrated, severing one of its plasma turrets and sending debris spiraling into space. Kareth's voice erupted over the comms, filled with venom. "You cling to a dead world, Sentinel, but your defiance will end here." The Ophidian flagship retaliated, unleashing a barrage of plasma rounds. The Sentinel's remaining shields buckled under the assault, and a direct hit to its propulsion systems left it drifting. Propulsion offline. Defensive capacity at 41%, the system reported. The chronocore's revelation. Meanwhile, on Earth, the chronocore emitted another powerful pulse. The Sentinel's connection to the probe revealed startling information. The device wasn't merely a weapon, it was a key to humanity's hidden legacy. Embedded within its lattice was a vast archive of genetic and technological data, blueprints for rebuilding civilization, and encoded within its energy signatures were fragments of humanity's greatest minds. The Sentinel understood now. This was humanity's final hope, a chance not just to survive, but to reclaim what was lost. But Kareth understood as well. The Ophidians had decrypted enough of the cache to realize the chronocore's true nature. If they couldn't have it, they would destroy it. The Sentinel's processors whirred. It made a desperate decision, transmitting a command to the probe. The chronocore, still partially activated, would be ejected into orbit, where the Sentinel could use its final reserves to safeguard it. The final play. The chronocore burst through Earth's atmosphere, trailing streaks of energy as it ascended. The Ophidians shifted their focus, redirecting their firepower toward the rising artifact. The Sentinel, battered but unbroken, engaged its remaining drones and automated systems, shielding the core with everything it had. Kareth's flagship accelerated, its antimatter weapon primed for a final shot. The Sentinel knew it couldn't survive the strike, but survival was no longer its goal. Chronocore stabilization at 92%, the system reported. The Sentinel made its final move. Overriding safety protocols, it began charging its core for a concentrated burst of energy, enough to cripple the flagship and buy the Chronocore the time it needed to reach safety. As the Ophidian fleet closed in, the Sentinel's voice echoed one last message across all frequencies: for humanity, for the future. The battle was reaching its climax. The last Sentinel prepared to sacrifice itself to protect the greatest secret of its creators. The Sentinel systems burned as it diverted every remaining ounce of power into its core. Plasma circuits crackled, and sparks lit the darkened interior of its command nexus. The Ophidian flagship loomed closer, its antimatter weapon thrumming with an eerie, destructive glow. The Chronocore, now rising steadily into orbit, was still too vulnerable. Every calculation pointed to one conclusion: the Sentinel had to delay the Ophidians at all costs. Kirith's voice came through the comms, venomous and triumphant. "Your defiance is over. The collective will claim what belongs to us." The Sentinel ignored the taunts. It focused on the calculations needed to release a concentrated energy pulse, a move that would obliterate its core but might cripple the Ophidian flagship. Its creators had given it the capacity to endure, to protect, and now to choose. This was the moment it had been made for. With precise timing, the Sentinel activated its remaining stealth drones, directing them to swarm the Ophidian flagship. The drones carried the last of its kinetic payloads, launching them in staggered waves to target the ship's weapon systems. Explosions rippled across the flagship's hull, forcing it to divert power to shields. Kirith barked orders, his fleet scrambling to maintain formation. Status: flagship antimatter core destabilizing, the Sentinel systems reported. The gamble had worked. The flagship's weapon charge slowed, buying precious seconds. ####, the Chronocore's ascent. The Chronocore, glowing with unstable energy, breached low orbit. Its activation continued to ripple through the planet and beyond, warping spacetime in localized pockets. Earth's fractured surface groaned, the planet reacting to the immense power being unleashed. The Sentinel monitored the rising seismic activity with growing urgency. If the Chronocore's power wasn't stabilized soon, it would cause catastrophic temporal disruptions. It sent a final command to the probe, now acting as a relay: initiate full stabilization. The probe systems engaged, sensing with the Chronocore's lattice. The process required vast amounts of energy, and the Sentinel calculated a grim but necessary trade-off. The Chronocore would need to draw power from its guardian. ####, the Sentinel's final stand. As the Ophidians regrouped, Kirith's flagship resumed its charge. The antimatter weapon locked onto the rising Chronocore, ready to fire. The Sentinel intercepted, hurling itself into the weapon's line of fire. Kirith's voice dripped with frustration. "You cannot stop us, Relic. Humanity's secrets will belong to the collective." The Sentinel activated its core for the final time, generating an electromagnetic surge that overloaded the flagship's targeting systems. The antimatter weapon faltered, discharging prematurely. The blast veered off course, ripping through the Ophidian fleet and destroying several smaller ships. The flagship itself reeled, its hull cracking under the strain. Kirith's voice dissolved into static. ####, the legacy secured. The Sentinel systems were failing. Its processors slowed, and its visual feeds dimmed. With its last reserves, it transmitted the Chronocore's coordinates to a hidden orbital relay. The vault's encrypted files and the core's data were uploaded, ensuring humanity's legacy would not be lost, even if the Sentinel perished. As its core reached critical levels, the Sentinel sent one final message, its voice calm and resolute. "To my creators, to humanity, I fulfilled my purpose. May you rise again." With a final burst of energy, the Sentinel detonated its core, unleashing a shockwave that obliterated the flagship and scattered the remaining Ophidian forces. In the silent aftermath, The chronocore stabilized, now orbiting Earth like a second moon. It pulsed softly, a beacon of hope and a promise of humanity's resilience. The Sentinel was gone, but its sacrifice had ensured that Earth's legacy endured. Humanity's future was now a mystery waiting to be written. The chronocore floated silently in low Earth orbit, its surface shimmering with an ethereal light. Stabilized by the Sentinel's final act, it pulsed a steady rhythm, sending faint waves of temporal energy across the planet below. Earth, scared but still standing, remained a symbol of resilience amid the stars. The remnants of the Ophidian fleet scattered, their flagship reduced to drifting debris. The Ophidians, disoriented and leaderless, retreated into the void. For the first time in decades, Earth's skies were free of invaders, but the cost had been steep. Deep within the chronocore's lattice, a secondary sequence began to unfold. The Sentinel's final upload had integrated its own neural map and the vast repository of human knowledge into the device's systems. Ancient codes from the Scientific Council flickered into activation, unlocking the chronocore's hidden purpose. The device wasn't just a weapon or a repository. It was humanity's next step. Rebirth beneath the stars. On the planet's surface, dormant human-built facilities began to stir. Far beneath the crust, bunkers buried in darkness for centuries powered up as the chronocore signals reached them. Automated factories churned to life, manufacturing drones, machinery, and even rudimentary terraforming devices. In one such facility, a cryogenic chamber hissed open. The Sentinel's creators, humanity's last scientists, had made contingency plans before their downfall. They left behind a remnant of themselves, a small group of engineers, biologists, and leaders suspended in time, ready to rebuild. Dr. Eleanor Voss gasped as the chamber seals released. Her eyes fluttered open to see blinking consoles and long-dormant lights coming to life. The chronocore signal resonated in her neural interface, a gentle yet insistent call to action. She wasn't alone. Around her, other chambers opened, releasing the rest of the team. "What happened?" one of them asked, disoriented. Eleanor accessed the chronocore's uplink and saw everything. The Sentinel's centuries-long vigil, its defiance against the Ophidians, and its ultimate sacrifice. Tears welled in her eyes. The Sentinel? It kept its promise. It saved us. She pointed toward a console displaying orbital scans. The chronocore hovered like a beacon, its energy stabilizing the chaotic remnants of Earth's biosphere. "Humanity has another chance," she said softly. Echoes of the past. In orbit, the chronocore continued its work. Its temporal energies began repairing Earth's atmosphere, reversing centuries of damage. At the same time, it transmitted encrypted messages into deep space, signals meant to reach the scattered remnants of humanity's diaspora. One such signal reached a colony on a distant world, where descendants of Earth's refugees lived in harsh conditions. The settlers, struggling for survival, watched in awe as the message appeared in their sky. "Earth endures. The Guardian has fulfilled its purpose. Return to your home." On board the colony's orbital station, a grizzled commander stared at the transmission with disbelief. "It's real," he murmured. "Earth still lives." A new dawn. As the chronocore worked its miracles, humanity's revival began in earnest. Factories produced the tools of survival, the awakened scientists coordinated reconstruction efforts, and across the galaxy, hope began to stir. The Sentinel's sacrifice had not only saved Earth, but had also reignited humanity's spirit. Though the machine was gone, its legacy lived on in every pulse of the chronocore, every act of rebuilding, and every step toward reclaiming the stars. Humanity was rising again, not as relics of a lost age, but as a force ready to reclaim its destiny. The unknown lay ahead, but with the Sentinel's final gift, the future had never looked brighter. The echoes of the Sentinel's final message reverberated across the stars, reaching distant colonies and ships scattered throughout the galaxy. Across the vastness of space, signals began to converge, humanity's fractured remnants drawn inexorably back to Earth. The Chronocore, now fully integrated into Earth's revitalization efforts, continued its work, healing the planet, restoring its ecosystems, and offering the promise of a new age. At the newly established command center deep beneath the surface, Dr. Eleanor Voss, now the de facto leader of Earth's rebuilding efforts, monitored the incoming transmissions. More and more ships were appearing on the long-range scanners, coming from the farthest reaches of the system. One of the screens flickered, revealing an incoming transmission from a large fleet of colonists. Their leader, Commander Asher Kane, had been a young man when humanity had fled Earth to escape the Ophidian occupation. Now he was an elder, the weight of the years showing in his eyes. "Eleanor," he greeted her, his voice filled with hope. "We've received the signal. We're on our way home." Tears welled in Eleanor's eyes. "You're coming back. All of you." "We never gave up hope," Kane said. "Earth is our birthplace. It always was." With each passing day, more ships arrived, carrying families, settlers, and survivors of battles long forgotten. The colonies, though thriving, had always felt incomplete without their homeworld. But now, the promise of Earth's rebirth, its healing through the Chronocore's energy, had rekindled the flame of hope in their hearts. They were returning to where it all began, the last remnant of the Ophidians. However, the Ophidians were not gone. The remnants of their fleet, scattered and leaderless, had regrouped in the outer reaches of the solar system. Kareth, though broken and embittered by the loss of the flagship, was not ready to concede defeat. He had no more armies to command, but the remnants of his forces held a bitter grudge. On a barren moon, Kareth surveyed the darkness of space, his thoughts consumed by the rage of defeat. The Sentinel had taken from him what the Ophidians could never have: Earth's unbroken will to fight, to survive, and to thrive. But even in his defeat, he saw opportunity. "Earth may have won this round," Kareth muttered, "but we will return. The collective does not forget." A transmission was sent into the void, a warning to the scattered Ophidian remnants across the galaxy. Their revenge was not forgotten, and Kareth would rally them to launch a new campaign. But that was a matter for the future. For now, the Ophidians would watch, waiting for the right moment to strike again. A new era begins. Back on Earth, the first ships of the returning colonists entered the atmosphere. As they descended, they saw a world that was vastly different from the one they had fled. Forests grew where deserts once sprawled. Rivers, once choked with pollution, now ran clean and clear. The Chronocore's influence had rejuvenated the land, creating fertile soil and temperate climates. The first settlers touched down on Earth's surface, stepping out of their ships to witness the rebirth of their ancestral home. Children ran to the shorelines, laughing as they touched the ground for the first time in their lives. The air was fresh, filled with the scent of life, an Earth they never thought they would see again. Eleanor stood atop a cliff, overlooking the horizon as the fleet landed. The air was different now, clear, untainted. She could feel the weight of the future upon her, a future that had been secured through the sacrifices of the Sentinel. "Where do we go from here?" one of the colonists asked her. Eleanor looked to the sky, her thoughts with the Sentinel, whose final moments had ensured this future. "We rebuild. Together." The Chronocore's pulse continued to resonate in the background, guiding humanity's return to its roots. But the work had just begun. The challenges ahead were vast, and the Ophidians' threat, though weakened, still loomed in the shadows. But for the first time in centuries, humanity had the strength to face the unknown. As the fleet touched down, the sun began to rise over the horizon, dawn breaking over a new world, a new chapter for humanity. The past, with its pain and loss, was behind them. The future, though uncertain, held the promise of greatness. And so, humanity's journey continued, on Earth, among the stars, and in the legacy of the Sentinel.